Okay, I hope you all had a good lunch. Next up is Simon Cowley. He's a Principal Cybersecurity Officer at the Department of Health Victoria. Done a lot of good work with AusCERT over the years. And he's here to talk about medical device security, challenges and practical solutions. And I'm sure there's no short of challenges there.
Yeah, there is a few. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for having me speak today. I'm happy to just dispel some myths and provide some practical solutions in this particular area of security. I also could retitle this presentation Medical Device Security, what you may not want to know about but need to really know about. So let's get started. So I'm going to start from basics here because I know that a lot of people may not be aware what a medical device really is. It's a regulated healthcare technology. They're used everywhere. They're used for the diagnosis, prevention, treatment of disease and injury. And there's many makes and types and thousands of devices out there in healthcare. Who's got a Fitbit or one of those devices that send all your data to some type of data ocean somewhere? Yes, so do you think it's a medical device? No, it's not. It's pretty good about doing quite accurate biometric and biological data gathering, but it's not a medical device because if they wanted to regulate that device, make it regulated, you probably have to add a 1 or a 0 at least to the cost of that device. Medical device is actually quite expensive because they actually got to go through a very rigorous regulatory process to ensure that they're safe for and can be used in the clinical environment. All right, so here we go. This is a nice, shiny looking operating theatre. This is a stock photo. Looks really swish, got some pretty cool tech there. These are all the connected medical devices in this room. Surgical microscopes, X-ray systems, ultrasound systems connecting to PACS, a picture archiving and communication system. That's basically a massive data storage array, one of the earliest integrated medical systems in a hospital that stores your medical imaging. You've got an electrosurgical generator there that actually cuts tissue, cuts people open with an electrical surgical current. You can do software updates that with a laptop computer that a biomedical engineer can bring into the room. Pretty critical piece of equipment, and you want to make sure that software update is a nice trusted source. Endoscopy systems and the anesthetic workstation. So when you're having a surgical procedure, that's the thing that's actually keeping you breathing and making sure you don't die and keeps you that nice sweet bit from being awake, anesthetized, and brain dead. So pretty important machine. It's driven by a very, very well-trained professional, but that is the device that is internet connected and is doing your ventilation for you and also delivering you anesthetic agent. So I'm going to take this time to sort of let's look at a few medical devices, what they do, and what's under the hood. So this is a patient monitor. So these are used right for our hospitals. This is what monitors your vital signs, your ECG, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your oxygen saturation, and they're attached on wide-scale networks in hospitals. They connect to multiple hospital systems, and they integrate with a lot of systems as well. So let's have a look under the hood. They're actually pretty good security-wise. I've tried to do some coloured dots here to sort of indicate what's really good and what you got to be aware of, but you can control it with other means. So those patient monitors run a proprietary operating system, a real-time operating system. It's not as challenging, not as much of a threat surface as, say, a Windows operating system or something like that. The manufacturers typically harden these out of the box, and they're installed on large scales in hospitals. So that means you can really do the economies of scale. You can maybe put in dedicated network infrastructure, or even if you're using the hospital infrastructure, it's installed in a very controlled manner. There's a lot of 60, 100-page documents on the network architecture that should be used, because it's not about being secure. It's actually about making sure that these do the job and
if a life-critical alarm sensor from patient monitor to a central station actually gets there, because it's someone's life and death associated with it. But the things to be aware of, that they could be running N+1, N+2, hopefully you understand my math there, but basically they're always running 1 or 2 steps behind of what is the current operating system. And they run 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, so it might be hard to patch them. Not impossible, but a bit more difficult. Unfortunately, they do get often installed with their factory default credentials, so got to watch that one. Arterial blood gas analyzer. This is a single medical device that you might just put in one spot of the hospital. There's a couple of key areas, but you wouldn't probably put them in on the same scale as a patient monitoring system and patient monitors. They're a little bit more challenging, because when you do things once or twice, you may not do it to the same level that you can do on economies of scale when you're doing a large wireless system. And so you often see these things just pushed in the corner, ticket gets sent to the IT department, get it on the network. It could be just sitting on the corporate environment, and people don't really know or understand much about it. So it's actually a little thing on your network no one knows much about, and ripe for the picking. And yes, they have been picked. Now, this is where we get into the area of implantable medical devices. So these people get a bit afraid with these things. Implantable medical devices have been around for a long time. Pacemakers have been around since the 1960s. The Royal Melbourne Hospital, where I used to work, was one of the first places in Australia to actually develop and design and implant a cardiac pacemaker into a person. The department I used to work for actually made these by hand, clinical engineering department at the Royal Melbourne Hospital. So they've been around for a long time, so they know what risk is and what the challenge is, and in that space. But then these devices are quite modern now and actually communicate with your phone and provides the patient with information about the device, and also can connect to a base station in a home environment, sending telemetry back to your cardiologist as well. And people would think that they would be quite risky, but they're not. They're actually quite secure, because they have to be, because they're in someone, and they might be connected to the wild, wild west, but the manufacturers have to get this right, and they do. And cybersecurity is one of the other risks that a medical device manufacturer needs to manage. And they know how to manage risk, because it's a whole lot of different thing to making like a Fitbit to putting inside someone and making it work for 10 years in a corrosive environment, and making sure that that doesn't have to come out any other time in 10 years, and it comes out in a controlled manner, and it's not an emergency procedure. These people are involved in coordinated vulnerability disclosure programs. They tell people when there's an issue. They tell everybody that they need to get in and get a patch done, and they are also always monitoring the threat landscape in this regard. Never heard of cybersecurity incident on a device of this nature. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but never heard of one. And I've looked far and wide. So medical devices have an evolving threat landscape. So as more and more with things we connect up, we create this emergent threat landscape. But medical devices have two issues. They can be, by connecting them up, they're exposed to an environment that allows them to be compromised, like unintended malware transferring onto the medical devices. However, they can also be a target because of their vulnerabilities, and you're used as a leverage point. So many may ask, why would you want to attack medical devices? But I'm sad to say that unfortunately some people just like to watch the world burn. There's financial political gain for being able to identify and access information from the data that's stored in these devices and IT systems. Malicious alteration or denial of service to a hospital is another vector of motivation, as a form of cyber warfare. Wide-scale disruption of healthcare services by making medical devices unavailable. So denial of service attack would be a good example for that. but also inoperable, and that's where it gets really nasty, where ransomware or some of the destructive malware that you can see in the industrial control sector could, brick a $3 million MRI machine. And I reckon if you did that, it'd probably take you weeks to restore it. And that's if you had the parts in the country to do it. And of course, the curiosity and prestige that may be awarded to some threat actor by being able to do this sort of stuff. So what kind of things are happening in healthcare, and what are our threats? Well, ransomware is the threat, the most highly prevalent threat in healthcare at this time. We had the first attribution of a death of a patient in Germany in September. The prosecutors in Germany did actually explore this, but they didn't find a case to answer. But it did actually bring up the case that this patient was bypassed from a hospital that was compromised by a ransomware attack and was unable to deliver all their services. It's a bit of a could have if it didn't, if they were treated at the time, would they have been better outcome? Don't know. It's all, could, yes, maybe no, don't know. But it has been attributed in that regard. The US got smashed in 2020 with ransomware. There was an alert that came out in October that we then communicated with our health services in Australia, or Victoria, where I live, about imminent ransomware attacks against from information on the dark web. And they did live up to what they were planning to do. They were responsible for 75% of the attacks in October 2020. And in this year, our ACSC has highlighted in their sector snapshot that ransomware is currently the most significant cybercrime threat to Australian healthcare. So this is going back to what I was saying about that arterial blood gas machine, or that forgotten device, that single device in a hospital that people have not really keeping an eye on. Yeah, well, threat actors can take that, and this is an example of one that has. This is a advanced persistent threat where a threat actor is actually leveraged off the medical device with the operating system that hasn't been patched for a while or is running XP when everybody's moved on, and use that as an easy point to get into and then work on orchestrating attack, which then exfiltrates data from a PACS network from all the medical imaging and radiology reports. So far, mostly been targeted for data exfiltration, but could be easily exploitable for other notorious means. So security controls can be challenging for medical devices. So what we have is a regulated technology, and what you need to be aware of with medical devices is that manufacturer's gone through a very extensive regulatory process to get that medical device approved for human use. You can't go in and start putting agents and anti-malware products and stuff that you've got for your enterprise on it, because what if you put that on and it caused that medical device not to function properly? You would actually be potentially liable and cause for the patient harm that may be caused by that scenario. So you do have to be careful. It doesn't mean you can't do stuff in that space, but it's something you've got to be aware of. There's such a diversity of medical devices in healthcare. You all go out in IT and standardize your desktops and your laptops and your operating systems. Medical devices have every single operating system and version and hardware that you can think of, because medical devices are bought for their clinical benefit and what they can do for those patients or for that cohort. They're not buying it for standardizing of operating system, not even on their radar. So you have to deal with that. That's just what it is. They all have high uptime retirements, no different than industrial control. You've got to have, they run 24/7. You just got to work with that. And the legacy debt, you're always going to have in healthcare medical devices that have got like a 10, 15-year lifespan with for a capital piece of equipment that's built into a room. And you're going to have to deal with that, because you can't really go out and just suddenly just put in your operating system, because it's not supported. So this guidance and security has developed over the last few years in medical devices. Here's some here. And some have tried to apply this into healthcare organizations, some in the US, but with extensive resources. It's like they've tried to apply it NIST. And NIST is great, and I do like NIST, and I like the 5 functions of NIST. But applying that to medical devices is like trying to use a forest to find the wood and the trees. So it is got its place, but it is a very broad control framework that is not written from medical devices up. And the essential aid, interesting little footnote for essential aid here is that it's actually featured in the TGA guidance as a foundation piece. So we've got some good stuff here in Australia. And medical device manufacturers are embedding cybersecurity in their products. They have been for quite some time. It's not a new thing. And they now got life cycle approaches to cybersecurity. They participate in global information sharing networks to share their best practices and develop new practices. And security researchers are spending their time to poke into medical devices and see what they can actually do and get to, and then disclose those with medical device manufacturers. This is a really good piece in Germany late last year. The report came out called ManiMed, Manipulation of Medical Devices, and they funded some dedicated security research and found a whole lot of vulnerabilities in devices, which was then shared with the medical device manufacturers that participated in that program. And some amazing things came out of it, but really good word read if you ever look it up, go out and find it, ManiMed. So why am I talking about industrial control? Well, medical devices, but I actually worked in industrial control, then I worked in biomedical engineering, and then now I'm working in cyber. And healthcare needs to look to other industries for their guidance and controls in medical devices, and that's where I got them from. So I see industrial control and medical devices have many parallels, such as legacy operating systems, they're critical infrastructure. If you do something wrong with medical devices, you do something wrong with industrial control infrastructure, you can cause harm to people and to the environment. And you've got high uptime requirements in these technologies, and also there's a standards and regulatory compliance that you have to work under as well. So that little photo there is just a footnote to some of the stuff I used to work on. That's a Rosemount System 3 industrial control system. It was built in like the 70s or 80s. There's a few things that would survive a nuclear holocaust. That would be cockroaches and the Rosemount System 3. All proprietary hardware, so it was like completely bulletproof. So these are the controls that I developed from the industrial control sector and from my own workings as a biomedical engineer. Number one is the collaboration between clinical engineering, which is the discipline of biomedical engineering, but it being applied in a healthcare and hospital environment, the people who manage, maintain, and procure and support medical technology in a healthcare environment. So to achieve successful mitigation of cybersecurity risk in healthcare, you need a collaboration between the IT department or IT security professionals and biomedical engineers or clinical engineering. Both of them bring important work to the table, share knowledge, and we can work collaboratively what can and can't be done to protect the devices. And organisations globally recognise this over a decade ago. The Healthcare Technology Alliance here is a formation of HIMSS, the American Council of Clinical Engineering, and the Association of Advancement of Medical Instrumentation, another US organisation. Recognised this over a decade ago that they needed this collaboration to drive cybersecurity. Patch management. Now, patching is hard with medical devices, but it's a serious type of attack on patch systems. This needs to be made part of a medical device's planned maintenance cycle. So if there's any biomedical engineers listening, you do planned maintenance already, your software patching is your new and should be now your part of your planned maintenance activities. Like if you were changing filters or batteries on a medical device, like in a ventilator, you also go and patch the software as well. Also, use best practices as getting where you download that from, trusted sources. And if you have to use a laptop to go and download an update to a medical device, ensure that laptop's got its own very strong anti-malware protections and other things on that device. You don't want to take that laptop into a trusted network and drop malware because your laptop's just a piece of garbage. Reduce your attack surface. You isolate your medical devices from untrusted networks, particularly internet. There are so many medical devices have no business talking to the internet. Turn it off. You really just then cut down your threat surface by such a significant amount by doing that. Only allow real-time communications when you need to, and make sure it's essential. If it has no business talking to anything else, don't connect it. We like connecting things up, but if it doesn't have a business requirement, don't do it. Also then build a defendable environment. So limit if you have to connect it up, limit it by using good tech like a next generation firewall. And talking from our various speaker before, never turn your firewall into a router. Or none of this any crap. Always use it to its fullest potential. Don't put it in and don't actually use the anti-packet and malware inspection capabilities. Use it turn it up to 11. And also segment your medical devices into logical enclaves based on either the make or the modality. So you might have a patient monitoring system, makes sense. Vendor X, put that in one network, vendor Y, put that in one network segment, and then your PACS might be its own network, because you've got a mix of medical devices and other non-medical systems and workstations that need to talk together, but you still put it in an enclave of its own. By doing this, if one of them gets compromised, you don't get all compromised. It's about you're going to get pwned, but how pwned do you want to be? And manage your authentication. So adversaries are after high privileged accounts and access. Use MFA where you can. Reduce the privileges to those that are only necessary for the duties, principal least privilege. And I can strongly recommend having separate credentials and trust stores between your medical device networks and your enterprise or corporate network. Because again, it's back to it. You're going to get pwned, but how pwned you want to be. So you might lose some stuff that's like on your corporate network in a ransomware attack, but do you really want to let that also happen to your core critical infrastructure? And that's something you've got to really think about there. Implement secure access. Every medical device vendor out there is going to say, I need remote access to do X, Y, and Z. Is it really essential? This is one of the things that I'm going to try to break this with the program in Victoria, because I feel that medical device vendors have come in and said that they need access, and really it's not essential, because what it does, it just creates another attack surface that may not necessarily need to be there for an essential function. But if you do have to do it securely, encrypt it, and don't make it persistent. It should actually be used on a time-based purpose. You should be able to be in a position to say, oh, a clinician at that MRI machine in the radiology department say, I need some support from the medical device manufacturer on a particular clinical issue. They call them up. You work out who that person is and you authenticate them via out-of-band communications. Then you grant the access. It shouldn't be difficult, but it gives you that great deal greater level security when it comes to remote access. And then you've got to have something to monitor and respond, because you've got to be able to monitor. If you do the segmentation and you can then monitor those control points of medical devices very well, and they have a very, very, very small operating range of what they actually do and don't do. So if you're just monitoring if you've got the ability to monitor what's normal network traffic, everything outside that is abnormal. And then you set that up right, you can have an alarm trigger on that, and then you go and send someone to go and investigate that suspicious activity. But you've got to do that to get to that point. There's deception technology has a place also in medical IT network segments to actually provide that extra canaries in the mine. And you should have a medical device security incident plan. Shouldn't be like a separate one. It should be incorporated into your organization's cybersecurity incident plan, but you will have an incident with medical devices at some point. You need to actually hopefully have the things in place, what you need to talk to. Do you need to call the TGA? Yes. And also report it to the TGA. And you also have to, who's the medical device manufacturers, because you might need their expertise to actually help you with the incident response and recovery, because your hospital will not have the resources within it. Your biomedical engineering teams may not have the specific knowledge for that particular system. You need to have those people and know who to call on that. You've got to have backups of all your stuff. You've got to have the configuration. So unfortunately, what gets missed with medical devices is you need a config to rebuild the clinical configuration. All that time and effort's been to tune that system in that clinical environment. You need to have that at hand to help in the restoration place. It's not about just having the software to restore. It's actually that tuned configuration that's specific to that health service or even that hospital that you would lose if you had a complete blow away of that system. So and now I'm going to just talk about the timeline of these controls. So what I've just shown you is just some stuff that got adapted out of industrial control best practices in 2018. So I actually talked about that at a conference when I was a biomedical engineer in 2018. And we took that and had a chat with someone at the department by the name of James Fell, and one of my other colleagues at Royal Melbourne Hospital, Andrew Oldecker, who have been working for years on medical device security and what we can sort of do in that space. And we came up with a paper on top 10 strategies for biomedical device security and thought, oh yeah, this sounds like a good thing. And we just sent that out for our working group in Victoria for cybersecurity. And the TGA picked it up and thought it was pretty good. And they went into the TGA guidance for medical device security that was released in July 2019. And if you want to have a look, it's in there. And so I thought, well, must be something good about it if they wanted to use it at as a regulator to say that doing some of this stuff is the way to go. So took that, and in 2021 we launched a medical device security program for Victorian public health services. And so we now have in Victoria for the health services a medical device security working group, which meets monthly, and it's a working group that's chaired and run by the health services. The Department of Health facilitates, but its membership consists of biomedical engineers and IT security professionals from health services. So it's an environment to help try to drive that control number one, CE-IT collaboration. And what we're working on now is doing just a baseline assessment to a control set that's those 7 controls that you saw before and a few other things to see where we're all at. So the program in Victoria, you've seen that diagram too many times, sorry about that. This is what happens when you pull a presentation together from multiple sources. You just keep repeating things. So the program focuses on medical device product life cycle. So it's the cradle to grave approach. So the regulators do their cybersecurity, and the manufacturer we're looking at the post phase of supply of the manufacturing device. So when you procure it, when you put it into operation, when you then take it through the hospital, and then it comes into a legacy phase. And we're leveraging off industrial control security or system best practices, because they've got a really good approach to defense in depth and threat modeling, particularly things like the MITRE ATT&CK framework. There's actually a specific one for industrial control systems. And what we've done is with a security program, we've already got a baseline control set. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We put this little subset over the top, but it links into a main control set. So the people who've done the work on this in the hospitals can then see where they can leverage off that to drive the medical device security. So we've got areas of practice. Yep, thank you. Areas of practice, security controls, and we've also got a framework now in place. The practice areas these are the 10 practice areas. So this is the cradle to the grave. So it's the risk management, the collaboration, And then from procurement through to asset management, endpoint protection, yes, it is a thing. You can do it for some medical devices. Some manufacturers actually have validated things like anti-malware, some of the more advanced ones too, in their products. So you could use it, but they're also, it's about knowing what you can't and where you can't put it, and then having that in a risk register. Because, then, well, I can't use that as a tool, but what can I do around it to protect it? Application control is also part of practice area number 5, endpoint protection. Network management, that's all about the stuff on defendable environment I've talked about before. Identity and access management, vulnerability management as well, and that's about having coordinated vulnerability management program, threat intelligence coming in, but also potentially using vulnerability scanners in a controlled manner, and dealing with legacy debt and legacy devices as well, and having a way to deal with it when you get the when you have the incident. So ongoing, we're going to do a gap analysis based on the assessment, and we're hoping to do our first exercise on with a medical device cybersecurity incident exercise in late 2020, if things going well. But future-wise for medical device security, the medical devices will continue to improve at the device and hardware level as manufacturers move to new platforms and technologies. It takes a long time for a medical device manufacturer to move from one product to the next. It takes a long time to validate the next generation of technology through regulatory processes, but it is accelerating nowadays. The FDA and other organisations, the European organisations that do regulation as well, have tried to work on those processes in that regard. But the driving factor for that improved in security is because more medical devices are leaving the home environment, or the hospital environment, and are in the home environment. So they're actually outside of it. You can't put those protections around it you could do in a hospital that you can't do in the home. And there will always be a legacy debt to manage medical devices, and particularly for the big, expensive things. So an MRI is a $3 million machine. And it costs a lot, probably a good proportion or more of that, a good chunk of that same cost per year to run. It's not something you can go and say, oh, I'm getting rid of it because the OS is obsolete in underneath it. It's a very expensive piece of kit. So you're going to have to always deal with legacy at somewhere. And if it's not Windows 7, it'll be soon Windows 10. So it's always going to be something you're going to have to work on. And that's just references. And yep, that's it. So questions?
Big round of applause, please. Thanks, Simon. And if anyone has questions, it's probably best to chuck it on the app just so people at home can see the questions as well. So, Simon, are you aware of any implications or issues to medical devices as a result of recent cyber attacks in Victorian health?
No. So there has been some incidents in recent times. There's particularly one in Eastern Health. Now, there weren't any medical devices implicated in that, but what I can say is that there are components of a medical device system that you need to understand that and other working parts that can potentially get compromised. And a good example would be an integration engine. So your medical device manufacturer will have a system, and they'll have the true medical device, the one that's regulated, and it will talk to equipment in a centralized environment like a central working station. That, like my patient monitors, is a great example. All the telemetry from those patient monitors come back to a central workstation that the clinicians can look at the staff base. And there might be databases to connect to that. And all of that side, could be fine in cyber incident. But it's that integration piece which connects that to electronic medical record or another system, that middleware, often provided by the same medical device manufacturer, but not technically a medical device because it's actually translating and moving the data. It's not actually, you're not making a direct diagnostic decision off that. They're the things that can get compromised, and the reason is that when those middlewares get installed, they maybe they maybe have the same credentials and domain level connectivity of other systems in the organization. Now, they're not actually that hard to restore those things, because it's actually just it's like a lift and shift sort of device. It's not actually storing anything. But it's an example of where, back to that trust and going, well, what if I've got a medical IT network and a trust relationship in that, I don't want to share that and have the same credentials that could be in a corporate environment, because I know that's what's going to be hit first and someone's going to get domain level privileges. I don't want that same thing to be, they're not able to own the other devices as well. Happy to answer the question.
So in addition to ICS, this seems to fit into a similar frame as PCI DSS. Is there a need to develop a specific industry-wide framework instead of more generic ones such as Essential 8 or NIST?
Yeah, well, it could be a place to actually have a industry-specific control set, and I've actually built one because there wasn't one. I mean, you've got NIST out there, and it's great, and the control set that I've got is based on NIST, and I actually, the old framework was built on the 5 pillars of the NIST framework, and there's basically a diagram that we've built that what health services do and what the department does under those 5 pillars. But and really, there would be a place I feel that if this moves on forward, that you could actually have a industry standard controls framework. The TGA tried that and have done that. Really, they've got do these things in their guidance, but you can take that pretty much as a pretty solid standard already. But again, this is really still an emerging area, and more work needs to be done.
And I'll just go one last question from myself. When it comes to these manufacturers making these devices, it's highly regulated, but most of the stuff that's currently in place is, as you said, the older devices of up to 15 years. Is the newer regulation starting to target stuff like not being able to implement a device with default credentials? In terms of, like, is the regulation targeting more implementation instead of just the manufacturing of the device?
Yeah, so that's where a lot has happened quite quickly in cybersecurity medical devices, because the best opportunity to influence a change is when it is in the design phase and embed the security in the device from day one. And that's where the regulatory agencies globally have been able to really drive that, is that cybersecurity is just one of the risks that it needs to be managed as part of the essential principles for any medical device. You can't put it in willingly with a massive security holes and those things, and the manufacturers of the medical devices also are rather risk averse, and they understand risk more than many of you may think, because these things are used on people. They make life-saving functions or decisions or report life-saving information. So they've managed risk for a long time in a whole lot of different other factors with medical devices, in terms of quality and methods to report and recall devices and such. Cybersecurity is just another one of them. They just have to put on their radar. So they've got the processes there, and it's just about making sure that they cover all the bases and have the people. Because again, when you look at cybersecurity, you've got this small group, and then you start distilling it down. When it comes down to people who are actually doing stuff in medical device security at the regulator, manufacturer, and state department level, is a very, very small number of people.
Can I get one more round of applause for Simon? Thank you. So coming up in about 5 minutes, we'll have Grant, I believe, giving us a tutorial on how to hack hospitals.